Justice Challenge. For those of you that are joining us again, welcome. And for those of you, if it's your first time, here we're going to give you a little background on what it is that is happening. So we are doing a social justice campaign, a service project of sorts with CIOGC. CIOGC is the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago. They are a organization that is a leading advocate of Muslim communities, enriching the American society. They work with various Masjid throughout the Chicagoland area in working towards service projects, interfaith relationships, and civic engagement. So this project is very unique and it's very beautiful. We had, different Masjid send in different proposals for projects that they were going to do to better fill the gaps of racial and social disparities within the Muslim community. Each of these masjids received a grant for $1,000, and after the deadline of this project, once it ends, a winner would be selected on August 9th, and the winner would receive $5,000 prize money to go and use towards their respective project in their communities. Last week, we had a cultural center, the Ibrahim Bahar Cultural Center, and they came and we spoke to the director about some of the disparities in their community and what they plan to do. Today, we have a representative from the south side of Chicago, southeast side of Chicago, from Masjid Al-Farooq. For those of you guys that are in Chicago, you've heard of this. Imam Usman Drame is the imam there, and everyone knows Imam Usman. But we have a representative from there, a youth director, youth coordinator, who's going to be speaking with us, telling us what their pitch is for the project. And we're going to just ask some questions with some of the challenges and adversities that they're facing as a community, especially in light of the recent events of COVID and also the racial and social, unrest that has been brought forth since the death of George Floyd, because all of that is intertwined into this conversation that we're having. So I'm going to go ahead and connect Brother Oumar Soumare, who is the representative from Masjid Al-Farooq, and he's going to be coming on right now, and we will start our conversation, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
So we have Brother Oumar Soumare. He is a graduate of University of Illinois, where he studied computer engineering, and he is a youth coordinator at Masjid Al-Farooq on the southeast side of Chicago. Now, Brother Oumar, I believe that you have submitted a social justice project, and you're going to be representing Masjid Al-Farooq. You're repping it big time over here. And I hear you got a very beautiful project that you want to share with. And we are all ears. We're excited about it, and we want to see what your community has to offer.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on this call with you, Brother Wali. Yeah, I'm excited to show what your followers have and what we have available at the Masjid Al-Farooq and what we plan to do for this social justice project. So hopefully everybody involved can learn something new today, and really look forward to it.
Absolutely. So what was the proposal that you submitted for the social justice project?
So with the proposal that we plan to submit, we wanted to do a project focused on racism awareness. And with this project, we felt that racial injustice is a topic or issue that's commonly overlooked in our society and is also long overdue. So with this project, we wanted to shine light on the racial injustices going around all over the America. And these acts of police brutality and modern day lynchings are not something new. It's been going on for decades. And it's just that the recent events of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless of other names have just shown what America is really for and what Black Americans are facing in society. And we just want to show that all of this is systematic and that in order to move forward into society, we just need to solve this issue and come together and figure out a solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know for me personally, because I've worked with, Masjid Al-Farooq, there's a lot of people who are unaware of the rich history of where you actually come from. Can you tell us some of those beautiful things that I'm referring to about Masjid Al-Farooq? Like, how did you guys start? Like, there's a very beautiful story behind, the fruition and coming to life of Masjid Al-Farooq.
Yes, that's right. So again, I'm from Masjid Al-Farooq, and that's a masjid on the south side of Chicago, or southeast side, you could say. And we're predominantly a masjid of African Muslims, mainly West African, and also African American Muslims. And we were started, to give you a brief history, we started in the early 2000s when a group of brothers wanted to do 5 daily prayers together, and also Juma Salat. And it started in the basement of one of the brothers' home. And then after coming together a couple of times, they decided that we needed to actually start a masjid on the south side of Chicago. And that led to our first masjid, which was a storefront that we rented on the south side of Chicago.
Like a grocery store.
Yeah, basically a grocery store, and it was right next door to a laundromat, basically. So our first imam was Imam Usman.
Smiling because there's so many stories of these masajid that are now big centers who have their humble beginnings starting in the basement of some uncle's house or the basement of like some corner store bodega or something. So it just made me smile.
Yeah, that's right. So like in itself, that was a beautiful moment. But early on, we faced many challenges as a community. Our first masjid that we established was eventually destroyed by a fire, and not too many people know about this. So early on, we did face a lot of challenges, and then that led to us to having our second location, which was also another storefront. But that storefront quickly became too small for our growing community, and it was also not in the best of neighborhoods to raise the youth. So we really needed to find a new location. And after years of fundraising by Imam Usman Darame and other people in our community, we were able to secure our third location, which is on 89th and Stony Island, and that's the one that you're more familiar with. And
Right.
yes, and that was established in 2010. So since then, that's been a blessing for our community, and we've been doing a lot of great programs, and we've established a lot of great connections while being at that masjid. So one of the programs that we started more recently was the food pantry, and that all started during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in addition to that, we also have our usual programs such as our Muslim housing program, which is aimed for Muslim converts so that they can get on their feet and also stay connected with the masjid while they're in that transition phase.
MashaAllah, mashallah. And you know what? That's really interesting because you transitioned us right into the next really talking point. Was like, what are some of like the biggest accomplishments for your masjid, and just considering the humble beginnings of this masjid, right? Coming from a storefront, caught fire, had to start from all over again, and already was a small, front to begin with. But now you are in a position where you're providing housing for new Muslims, right? Who may not have a place to go, who may not have any family, who may not have a welcoming face. Now, Masjid Farooq has become that institution that is putting a roof over people's heads during the most vulnerable time of their life where they feel so scared and they don't feel like they have somebody. And Masjid Farooq has become that community.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I would say most of our biggest accomplishments lie within the programs that we have at the masjid. And a lot of people look forward to those programs and rely on those programs to get through, just to get through life in general. So although we're falling behind in some of these programs due to COVID-19, there's a lot of good things that came about during this pandemic. And one of those things, the food drive that I mentioned that we've established at the masjid. So we have a recreational gym in the masjid. And since it wasn't being used from the pandemic, we decided to turn that recreation gym into a food pantry where we're able to package food and deliver it to those who need it.
Now, you're the youth coordinator for Masjid Al-Farooq, right?
Yes, that's correct.
How involved are the youth with your masjid? Given everything that's happening right now, especially considering that you're a vastly, African and African American masjid, like what are the dynamics like right now? What are the kind of conversations that are happening, if there are happening, with the youth and you?
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit about that. So as of lately, our youth have been more involved with the masjid and have stepped up as leaders at the masjid as well, which is why you see me on the call instead of Imam Usman himself, you know. So as one of the older youths at the masjid, I've been able to plan both social and educational programs for our youth. And those educational programs include halaqas, college preparation workshops, and even trips to different masajids and different events in the Chicagoland area. So all of this has been in an effort to keep the youth connected to the masjid and also to keep them on the right path so that they feel comfortable being Muslim and feel comfortable being around with people who have the same beliefs and ideas as them. So
Mashallah.
also with that, in addition, I'm also leading the CIOGC Service Project Challenge, and that's primarily youth driven thus far.
Hmm.
And when you kind of think about it, it's not really uncommon to have youth leading movements. If you look at today's Black Lives Matter protests, you see that many of the people on the front lines are young people, young faces. And even if you go back to the civil rights movement of the 1960s, you see mainly young people in these protests and fighting for change. And one more thing is like if you go back to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many of his sahaba was young people as well. So like these young people weren't like just sitting idle; they had influential roles and led the movements in Islam as well. So that's something we look forward to doing, and hope that young people in our community can uphold to those standards.
Absolutely. And to comment on that point, we sometimes are the limiting factors to our own selves, right? And you bring up a very good point. You say, there's young people on the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement. There's young people on the forefront of the halaqas that are being led at your masjid and the social justice projects. When we bring that back to Muslim roots, right? When we bring that back to Islam, and we think about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam put in charge to actually lead the Muslim army, right? When we look about Zayd bin Haritha and about Osama bin Zayd, like these are young people, like almost like teenagers in charge of the Muslim army, like leading battles on the forefront, defending the honor of Islam, right? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah, I
so
know.
we think it's kind of unusual, like it's a young person doing this and that, when this is our sunnah, man. Like this is our roots to rise up to the occasion, accept the challenge, and make it better. Because that's how the Prophet ﷺ conditioned his companions, and that's the kind of Muslims that gave rise to those early generations. Because that's who we are as a community, mashallah. So, how do you feel that this CRGC service project is going to help your respective community?
So what I think the CIOGC as project is going to help the community is that it's like a lot of times minority and low income communities are left out of the know on how they can make change in their communities. And because so a lot of times we just wait for the next person to step up or someone with a higher influence to tackle these issues we're facing as a community. But little do we know that we don't really need a big name to go behind. It's just we just need like a smaller collection of individuals to come together and work together as a collaborative effort in order to stop these racial injustices. So that's what we want the community to realize, and we want to set precedents in the community so that whenever these issues arises, they already know what to do.
Right. If you win the challenge, how would you expand this program?
So I never really talked about the program itself that we plan to do. So I'll probably
Please, yeah,
backtrack.
no, absolutely. Feel free. Go in depth. Tell us how you're planning to win and what your actual proposal is.
All right, cool. So as I mentioned before, the CIODC project challenge will be mostly led by the youth group at Masjid Al-Farooq. And what we have planned for this project challenge is to create an event, or a series of events, I should say, centered around racism awareness. And we believe that these issues are, commonly overlooked and long overdue in our society. So with that being said, we're still in the process of organizing of how exactly we will carry out the project. But so far, we separated the project into three different phases. So the first phase would be to set up educational booths in our community, and we would like to share the different stories in Islam that deals with racism and how we should combat it. And we'll be sharing this with our non-Muslim community members as well as our Muslim community members. And in addition to that, we want to provide the necessary resources to our community members so that they can take action by themselves and go online and sign petitions and send emails to the people who can make changes in the community. And then finally, yes. Well, that was all the first phase. So the second phase, yeah. So the second phase, we wanted to set up a webinar that will serve as a follow-up to the first phase. And this webinar will talk more in depth in about different educational programs, and also do some of the petition signing and email sending that we talked about at the booth. And the third phase would consist of the continuation of our food pantry. So whenever we're delivering food or giving these food drives out, we would like to package the same information that we're given in the booths and the webinars into the food packages, so that those who are receiving it can also fight against racial injustice.
Mashallah. Now this is really to talk about something that isn't really talked about very often or very much. How can the non-Black Muslim community be better allies with the Black Muslims?
So what I think the non-Black Muslim community can do to be better allies is to first do a self-evaluation on where they stand on the issue. So when it comes to this issue, there's not much leeway to be neutral. You're either for it or or against it, right? So honestly, if you have the ability and the privilege to make a change and you're not doing it, then sadly you're a part of the problem. So what we want to see is more of our non-Black Muslims to step up and become leaders as well. So some people, they have the means financially to donate to these organizations that's doing the great work, while other people they have the time and the energy to volunteer directly with these programs and to attend the protests and rallies that's going on in the community. So we just want people to realize how they fit into the movement and take action against that. And in addition to that, another self-evaluation that we want non-Black Muslims to have is to discover the things that they may be doing that's racist, or that they may be saying that's racist, and have conversations with the Black community to make sure that none of those things are to make sure that these things are in line with what we stand for, and make sure that they learn from our experiences as well. So that's why I feel like we really need to educate ourselves and have more diversity initiatives where we have our non-Black Muslims interact and learn from our Black Muslims and vice versa. And after having those conversations with one another, then we can go back into our own communities and have those tough conversations with our family and friends who may be doing things that's racist that they don't know about.
A lot of self-awareness and kind of like a self-inventory that needs to be done to see where we stand as individuals, and especially because there's a lot of cultural racism, a lot of just systemic racism that's been built on and ingrained in us as we are raised. You know what I'm saying? And when we have these conversations and we possess that honesty to see where we stand, definitely opens up that room for dialogue. What kind of efforts would you, as a youth coordinator, right, like to see more from society at large when it comes to filling these gaps? Like, now this was just Muslims, right? But like how about everybody in general? Like, what can they do? Be it at Masjid Farooq, right? That's in the middle of the South Side, where you have Muslims from, Hispanic, Latino backgrounds. You have people from, you have Arabs, you have West Africans, like you said, right? You're from Mali. You have people that are African Americans, actually, right, from the South Side. You have Pakistanis like myself. Everybody's coming to this masjid. Like what do you want from us, right, Muslims and the community at large, to make you feel part of the ummah and to also feel like we're pulling our weight for the ummah?
So something that I definitely want to see is a society to stay consistent and persistent when it comes to fighting racial injustice. Society tends to follow trends a lot, but I don't think we should see racial injustice as a trend. I mean, it is a trend when it comes to how long it's been going on unchecked, but when it comes to speaking up against it, it shouldn't be a trend at all. We shouldn't only take action when something tragic happens, or when it's Black History Month or when it's convenient. We should just be doing these things regularly and over the course of the year. And this is a matter of life and death for some people, as we've seen countless time on the news. So we definitely shouldn't see it as a trend, but we should strive each and every day to make a positive impact so that we can keep the ball rolling and not lose any momentum. Because once we start losing that momentum, we're back to square one, and all the progress that we've made so far has been lost in vain.
SubhanAllah. Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we see, right? We've become of following trends and having like knee-jerk reactions, right? Because police brutality has been going on way before Trayvon. It was on during the time of Rodney King. It's been going on.
Yeah, for hundreds of years.
Right, the incarceration rate of African Americans in our jail system is atrocious. Right, it's criminal actually what we do, to these people of color and minorities. But these fads pass away, right? And our concern that we have, it fades away. And I feel like this right here, this pivotal point in our society, the death of George Floyd, the death of Breonna Taylor, the death of Eric Garner, the death of Scott Bland, and all these deaths, these names that just keep coming up. I think we're past all of that. And now that rage, it has to be consistent and it has to be constructive rage. Because anger is good, right? Anger is good. But anger can be destructive, but anger can also build. It can also inspire change. It can also, allow us to wake up to the reality that's not okay. In this case, the racial injustices, right? The systemic cracks that we have. I think you hit that nail on the head with there. The consistency and not following, a fad or something that's cool now for me to be, put my hand and my fist up and say, yeah, I support them. But do you really support the cause? And what cause are you supporting? How are you supporting it?
Exactly. I definitely agree, Brother Wali.
So if you were to wrap up this conversation in one point, and you want the viewers watching to take one thing away from the conversation that we had, what would it be?
So one thing I would want to say is for the youth to really step up as leaders in every masajid within the Chicago area community. So these projects are given out to different masajids here in Chicago, and I challenge all these masajids to actually give the keys to their youth, just as our masjid did, and allow them to try to figure out what racial injustices occur in their community, because I feel like the youth have more of a connection and have more knowledge when it comes to these things, especially when you consider their connection to social media and the internet. They have all the tools that they need, and they may have seen things on social media that could be of use to their community and to other people in their families that may not have that social media presence.
Absolutely, and I think that is such an important point, because I think you can even like paint this with a broad brush and say that almost all youth have access to a smart device or social media of some form. And we all have the potential, we all have the possibility, the power, whatever you want to call it, right? To be a source of good, to be a source of change, social change, civic change, political change, right? Even spiritual change within ourselves and those that we have the capacity to influence, right? There are 31 statewide masjids that are going to be participating in this project. 17 of them are suburban, 10 of them are urban, 4 of them are rural. So we are going to be seeing people from a lot of different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, political backgrounds, racial, cultural backgrounds. So I think it's really important for our youth right now to engage and see where they can get in, fit in, and be the change. And I applaud you, mashallah, for coming and representing for your masjid, for your community, for rising to the occasion, and saying, this is a need in my community. We want to be the change. This is how we're going to do it. And really stepping up, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and increase you and preserve you, and may He put barakah in all that you do and allow you to be a beacon of light for your community, inshallah.
Appreciate it, Brother Wali.
I believe that is all the time that we have right now. We are going to, Jazakallah khair for joining us, Oumar, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Please give our warm salams to Imam Usman when you see him. We in Naperville have not heard from him or seen him in a while, due to obviously the restrictions and the masajid closing. But we are definitely thinking of him and missing him. With that being said, we are going to be going live once more next Wednesday at 6 p.m. with the next masjid that we have. We're going to be discussing various social justice projects. So please join us, inshallah, for our social justice series that's going to continue next Wednesday at 6 p.m. here on Instagram, live on YouTube of CIUGC and on CIUGC's Facebook Live. With that, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.